Hey guys, welcome to Goodwill Dynamics, show where we are figuring out how to understand and utilize the concept of goodwill in our modern world. And to that end, today we're going to be looking at another Reddit post. This is a personal story that's to do with the highly fraught topic of ghosting. So I think you guys may enjoy it. And Adam, whenever you're ready, take it away and read us that story.
Should I tell my friend why I blocked him? Too long didn't read. I blocked a friend that I don't want in my life without giving him an explanation. Should I unblock him to give him an explanation or leave it alone now? I posted this before on a subreddit, which doesn't allow platonic relationship, friendship-based questions. I didn't realize and it got deleted, so sorry if it looks familiar. 3 years ago, I, 28 female, was sectioned in a psychiatric facility for a month. Whilst I was there, I talked to another patient, 30 male, and we kept in touch after we left the hospital. We have met up for coffee or have gone to a bar regularly, just as friends, nothing romantic. Obviously, he struggles with his mental health, so I think I've been quite patient with him, but he started to irritate me. He mocked me a few times for not drinking alcohol just because my psychiatrist advises it wouldn't mix well with the medication I took for my mental health. A couple of times he has just not turned up to meet me when we have arranged something. He didn't text to cancel, he just didn't turn up. I said after he did this the second time that I wanted to end the friendship, but he persuaded me that I shouldn't do that. He phoned me sometimes in the middle of the night. Recently I didn't answer, but I texted him in the morning to ask if he was okay. He said he was, but that he didn't want to talk to me. So I got fed up and blocked him on all the platforms I could think of. I didn't tell him why. I figured it would only be an awkward conversation and he would try to persuade me not to. He messaged me on a platform I had forgotten to say it was a crappy move to block someone without explanation. He also asked me whether I was okay mentally because blocking someone out of nowhere is a sign something's not right. I didn't respond. I just hit block again. I think I might be in the wrong for not giving him an explanation, but maybe not, because whatever I had said, he would have argued about. I might be in the wrong for not understanding that the things he does, not turning up, phoning at strange times, and then not wanting to talk, may be mental health related. I am unsure whether to unblock him and just let him know I'm all right because he may be worried about my mental health now. Tell him that I just don't see us having a healthy friendship anymore and then block him again, or whether it's better to just leave things as they are. Edit. Thanks for your input, everyone. I unblocked him just to let him know that I'm not having a mental health relapse, but that I don't think the friendship is good for my mental health overall. And I mentioned it's unfair to phone a friend in the night and then say you don't want to talk. I told him to take care of himself, and then I blocked him again to stop him pulling on my heartstrings anymore. Too long, didn't read. I blocked a friend with no explanation. Either way, I don't want him in my life anymore, but should I unblock now to give an explanation or leave it alone? Edit. I decided to unblock him, gave a brief explanation, wished him well, and blocked him again.
All right. Well, this will be quite an interesting one to delve into. First, some cursory introductions. My name, of course, is Nick. We've got our friend Joshua here with us.
Hey, folks.
And we've got Adam.
Hello.
And of course, we have our friend from the great country of Denmark, Annie.
Hi.
So what do you guys think? This is, I mean, first of all, this is ghosting. This is a big topic, right? I think
This is what I think.
Well played. You know, I mean, this is kind of a huge topic, right? But and this is kind of, I guess this is largely from the perspective of the ghoster, right? But for this is kind of a big topic in our world where we're so connected with so many people, and we seem to have, you know, these strange relationships that we're unsure how to categorize. So what do you guys think? What's this phenomenon? What is the essence of what's going on here? You don't know the essence? Um, I mean, I would say it to me when I look at this situation, it just seems there's a mix of things, right? I mean, I certainly understand where she's coming from, and I understand that, it probably is the best thing for her to not be in contact with this person. But there's also, I mean, there's such ambivalence on her part, right? And I feel like, it's not being resolved, even on an introspective level necessarily, right? Much less with the other person. I feel, this. I mean, there's a whole history we obviously don't know, but she knew this person when she was in a mental health facility, right, and a psychiatric ward, I guess. Um, and they connected afterwards. I mean, this seems like there was something specific that she wanted from this person, right? That this person kind of understands a part of her experience that most people don't, and I suppose vice versa. And they kind of built something up on that basis, and it seems as though it's coming to this unsatisfactory end. Like there was a need for that, but then these other things kind of, when these negative tendencies built up, it became too much. And so it's like there wasn't really time to carefully consider the relationship. There was just a specific, there's a very specific sort of niche that they filled for each other. And then, after a while that fell apart under strain. So it's interesting to consider that.
I think you've got a good point, Nick. I think they met at this ward or facility, and they had something in common because they were there, and they probably talked a lot about it and about being there and their problems and so on. So they connected on that level, and for that reason. So when they came out in real society, or whatever you'd call it, maybe they didn't have so much in common anymore. And probably, we don't know that, but it sounds like she says that too. He still has some mental health problems, and that might be causing him to withdraw and call in the night and all of the things he does. Mm-hmm. So I think it's quite all right for her not to want the relationship anymore, but I also think she showed goodwill by telling him why, because if you block a person and they have no idea why you're blocking them, not everybody knows what they're doing really. That's not really goodwill. I think she did the right thing.
Well, I would add though that when you do just sort of cut it off like that with somebody, even because sometimes the path of goodwill is to kind of to confront people or to to show them the error of their ways in some sense. But I think especially with someone who might be kind of unwell, might have mental health issues, it's like when you just cut the relationship off, that very easily feeds into their pre-existing way of processing the world. So it's not necessarily teaching them a lesson, it's kind of just furthering this pattern that they have of other people don't understand me, I'm kind of in this little world by myself that only I understand, kind of thing, or it's me against the world, so yeah, I think it was good that she ended up at least telling him something.
I think
you're saying that from the perspective of the guy that he then feels kind of victimized,
something like that.
Yeah. I mean, some of that could be seen as self-sabotage too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see that a lot with anybody really, not just people that are having mental health challenges, but we do certain behaviors because it reinforces victimhood and it allows us to stay in that place. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, goodwill, she showed goodwill by reaching out to him to let him know, but sometimes, which is interesting because sometimes we think of goodwill and we only we think it's this exercise where you have to outwardly do something. Again, she needs to have that same goodwill for herself and do what's right for her own mental health. Sorry, I was a little lost in two different thoughts there.
No, that makes sense though. That's good.
I think I agree with most of what people said. I think the thing is, this whole idea of ghosting people or blocking people, in my mind, is a fairly extreme thing that people resort to very quickly. And it seems to be basically, not that it can't ever be correct, but it seems to be from like a place of selfishness, that any uncomfort or dislike is then met with, I need this thing out of my life and I don't have to, resolve it or even clearly state what the problem is. In my mind, the trouble with what she did, and by the way, I agree that, it seems like she shouldn't be friends with this guy anymore. His behavior was, not conducive to a friendship. You don't call somebody up in the middle of the night and then be like, oh, I don't want to talk, and then, agree to meet up with them. So the fact that she doesn't want to be friends with him, makes total sense to me. But she said something, and then he made his case or whatever he said, so that she was like, oh, okay, we can keep being friends. And so she basically sort of accepted this behavior, and then all of a sudden is gone. And that's the part that I don't think is appropriate. I mean, it's on you to not accept the behavior you don't want. And if you decide to accept somebody's behavior for like weeks or months, and then in your own head have decided, I don't like this, well, it's on you also for leading them along, right? And they at least deserve to, I don't like this kind of behavior, instead of sort of pretending. I mean, she said something, but then she allowed him to believe, well, it's okay now and we can still be friends. Yeah, and I would say if like, and the thing about being blocked is maybe not, I don't know, maybe more so in this case because the guy's got mental issues, but it can be traumatizing for people. Like, you think you've got a decent relationship with somebody, and then all of a sudden it goes from like, in your mind anyway, 100 to 0, and you're so bad that you can't even be in their life. So people act like blocking people is just like, oh, you just do that, as if it's like, characters in a video game. Oh, I'm just not going to go to that place in the video game anymore, instead of a real person who's invested in that relationship, and then you've just decided it's cut off and there's no explanation. I mean, that's a potentially really damaging thing.
Well,
I think the least somebody owes somebody is what she eventually did, which is an explanation. And I think if you have a significant relationship with them, not somebody you've known for like 2 months or whatever, then you should allow them to respond to it and stand your ground if you don't think the relationship's working out. But the whole idea that you have to cut it off and totally prevent any sort of response speaks to, I don't know, not having things sorted out in yourself, like things you're not willing to deal with. And it's not fair to have your unresolved issues put on somebody else. The same way that it's unfair for this guy to call in the middle of the night or, any of the other stuff he was doing.
yeah, it's 100% right. I like, because when you have all this ambivalence in yourself and unreconciled stuff in yourself, it's you can't really fully invest in a relationship, I guess. And I don't know, maybe she saw some hope of, I mean, this is really speculative, but maybe she saw some hope of being able to do that because they share these mental health issues, and so maybe she's had problems with this and felt like this would be different in that sense. I don't know, but yeah, it seems like you're right. There's and maybe it seems like maybe she was slowly withdrawing from the relationship the whole time, kind of, and at the end it was kind of not I mean, she doesn't describe it being easy exactly, right? But it wasn't quite as difficult as you'd think to just cut it off.
The point I was going to make before kind of came back to me. I was thinking about boundaries, and we often talk about boundaries as being something set, limits on a relationship, as if don't get in my business too much, or you're treading on my territory too much, back off, things like that. In this case, I think the girl, I mean, really, she just wanted a reasonable friendship, it seems. But in that case, you would set the boundaries as, if you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. You need to show up. If you're going to call, you need to be on the other end of the line. And so the boundaries kind of work in reverse, which is kind of an interesting aspect.
Yeah,
But this idea,
standards, not boundaries.
yeah. This idea of ghosting, and being so easily facilitated today through media. But, I would think this has existed. It's just that it wasn't as easy before technology, before you don't answer the phone or you don't answer the door. I mean, I don't know, is it just that we highlight it more now because it's so much easier and we are so connected in so many different ways?
I think, like you just said, it's easier now, where it was a lot more difficult in the past, because you're friends with all these people that aren't in your immediate life or your town. When you sort of knew everybody in your town and didn't go too far beyond that. Now that's been blown up with the internet and all sorts of interconnection and communication. So you can just flip a switch and not have to see the person again, versus like, oh, this person lives 3 blocks from me and they're friends with my sister, and blah blah. You couldn't just be like, we're done. I'm gonna pretend I never see this person again. It was a lot harder in the past, but I don't think that meant people were more gung-ho about appropriately dealing with their problems or interpersonal relationships before.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Annie, go ahead.
I think also it's very easy because, as Joshua says, you don't have to meet these people. It's just, if you don't like a little bit of what they're doing, just block them. I mean, you don't have to look at that. You don't even have to think about it very much. I mean, I don't think she does that, but in general.
That's a really good point. We've
Yeah,
lost some of that interpersonal skill.
It's important to differentiate. We're talking a little more abstractly about ghosting and not so much about her particular situation. I mean, she was at least somewhat justified. A lot of people who ghost, just like you said, Annie, oh, there's a little thing wrong. I'm out.
Well, it strikes me as almost being like this kind of like a derivative scheme, or of unsatisfying relationships or something, like the way that you hear about companies get investigated for all these weird sort of debt schemes, and they roll this money into that money, but it's sort of like that, where like you're never fully invested in these relationships. There's always kind of this ambivalence and this unsatisfying quality to it, and then you kind of, like, at a certain point that the strain of that becomes too much, and you kind of move on to another one, and it's like yeah, it's almost, I guess it's weirdly sort of parasitic, maybe mutually parasitic.
Yeah, it's interesting how technology takes time to master it, right, and use it in a way that we might think of as goodwill, or use it without creating more turbulence than the good that it benefits. I'm sure there were, when the first telephones came out, people may have had a hard time, figuring out some of the logistics with what was the best way to communicate with people. But it seems that we are working that out as a society now. How do you use social media? How do you use it wisely? How do you still create interpersonal relationships, and so that we are more connected and more invested, and we don't have this temptation to just ignore texts or you know, dismiss relationships that otherwise could have some value and meaning, or at least handle them in an assertive way. So hopefully over time we will, you know, maybe that's I know a lot of people have talked about it, and that we are losing. We've seen younger generations seem to not have that interpersonal skill set. And how do you go about teaching society that, or getting back to a place where we are more connected, especially given what's happened the last 2 years?
Jonathan Haidt has talked about this at some length, and maybe I'll put a link to this video presentation he did that relates to this. But one thing he's touched on is when kids, like the polarization, like politically, and people being so far apart has increased in the last 10 years or more. And he was correlating that with the release of the iPhone and eventually other smartphones. But basically the thing is, when kids get that, who are in middle school, it messes with their perception of things. Like if you get it when you're 16, it's not so bad. But when you're on your phone, like everything's connected through the phone. And you're less grounded in actual relationships in the physical world. And so when something happens on the phone, it's like so bad and so frustrating. Whereas an older person is like, oh, I just got this irritating message. This is their version of somebody, you know, physically assaulting them or yelling at them, because their whole world's keyed into this one medium, and they haven't developed without it. So the whole idea of ghosting being appropriate is because, well, oh, somebody said something mean to me. Now I have to cut off all contact with them, instead of, you know, try to work it out, or just state, I'm not going to accept that, or whatever.
I think that's also a fear of confrontation in people, and they allow it to be there because it's so easy. But they are actually afraid of talking to the other persons about the problems. Again, in general, not this girl, but in general.
Yep. Well, and to devalue relationships is sort of to devalue the value, the importance of confrontation, right? So
Yeah, it's like if it's said that goodwill is love in action. And if you really love the other person, are you treating them the way you would want to be treated in a similar situation? You know, if you were doing something wrong, hopefully, if you were looking at it fairly, you'd want to be called out about it, or not have somebody let you take advantage of it, right? So yeah, if you would want to hear the truth when you're making a mistake in a relationship, then you should do the same for somebody else.
indeed.
And I'd say allow them to respond to it, instead of, I made the decision, we're done, but here's the explanation, bye. And
Yeah.
it's fine to not have somebody in your life because they're not behaving right. That's totally okay, but just give them the chance to have a discussion about it, and stand by your standards or values if that's what needs to be.
Well said. Very well said. Well, I think that'd actually be a pretty good note to end it on, unless anyone has other important points to bring up. Okay. Well, I certainly enjoyed taking part in that conversation. A long one, but a good one. Hope you guys all enjoyed out there as well. As always, if you do enjoy, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and even hit that little bell so that you get that little notification when we do come out with a new video. It should be happening every couple of days or so. And we will see you guys in just a little bit.
Well, I want to know what they think, Nick. I want to know this is interesting. What's your relation been towards ghosting? What's happened with that? What do you feel like it? What are your experiences? Let us know in the comments.
Great idea. Please comment if you have an experience with ghosting or only an opinion. We'd love to hear it. Thanks, guys. Take care.